Hello, friends. We are still alive. It just had a little bit of a hiatus, scheduling conflicts and the like. But we are back on the Oscars project. We were watching every Best Picture winner from 1960 to current day, and we are currently into the 90s with the 1990 Best Picture winner, Dances with Wolves. The runners-up that year were Awakenings, Ghost, The Godfather Part 3, for some reason, and Goodfellas. So my best... I was trying to have a question ready, and the only question I can think of, because I'm bitter, is should this have won over Goodfellas and or Ghost?
Yes.
Not all at once.
Oh, he says yes. Wow.
I say yes.
Oh, wow. What was Awakenings? Was that the De Niro one?
That was let me see. Into Those Awakenings was the 1990.
Yes, it was De Niro.
drama.
It was. Yeah.
With
Director
Robin
Penny
Williams.
Marshall.
Robin Williams. Yeah.
Robin
That's what I'm
Williams,
saying.
yeah.
Okay. All right. That was pretty good too, actually.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have picked it over Goodfellas, but I think it's a good movie though.
Yeah. Do you feel, because when watching this movie, do you feel, because first of all, it was funnier than I remember. There was some pretty funny moments.
Yeah.
I think Costner did a great job with that. But towards the end, that it got a little bit too dark for the sake of being dark. A little too bleak. Because it goes kind of, there's some battles and there's some things that happen. But it does, because he goes from being in the military to not being in the military and choosing to leave. But then the military becomes this enemy. Is it because of the way he perceives them at the end? He perceives them as they really are? Or is it because he perceives them differently now because of his experience with the tribe?
It's a good question. I echo your dark sentiment, but I look back and I don't think it would have been fair or accurate to not make it darker at the end, because it's a very dark subject when you actually look back and think about it. About what happened during those times in that time period. You're in this big strife conflict between with the Civil War, and you're also in the middle of the expansions into the West that basically led to a lot of different genocides, and so it's a very dark subject with a very dark time. So on the one hand, it kind of bummed me out at the end. Basically 13 years later, everybody dies, and so it wasn't and contrasting that with like you said, the humor that was portrayed in some of the instances at the beginning of the film and through the first half, and some of the real empathetic connection made between some of the characters that was kind of feel good. Then to have that contrasted with that dark ending, it is a bit of a bummer. And but on the other hand, it would feel false if you didn't say, "Hey, this didn't have a happy ending. This time period, this life, this this situation." And so, as much as you don't want it as a viewer, I think it was appropriate.
Yeah, I kind of got to the last hour of the film, kind of think to myself, this is a long movie, right? And usually epics have some sort of historical point that they're kind of telling you. But as you quite rightly said there, Jared, it's such a well-known outcome to this story. In some ways, does it need it? But it feels weird because outside of that, the movie doesn't really have a point that it's trying to make. I don't feel, other than you can, with effort and will, kind of get along and get over differences in some ways. And I think the one thing that at the end of the movie that kind of shines through is the fact that because of how he's dressed, he is seen as an enemy. Like literally from the distance when they first encounter him at the end, the U.S. white troops, etc., they see him in his gear and shoot his horse and kill his horse, and have identified by how he dressed. And then ultimately, the ultimate insult is when he speaks in Sioux at them in the bit, and the fact that they do not recognize him as, well, he's a deserter and a traitor and all of those things, but they're actually, I think, repulsed by him in a lot of ways. It's like he's sort of been corrupted, or he's allowed himself to be corrupted. It's like the weakness of the white man has allowed himself to be corrupted by the Sioux, whereas the rest of the film is actually about the integration of this person into a culture that is, I mean, hard enough for me to kind of go beautiful and at one with the land and all of that kind of stuff, while still also pointing out the barbaric nature of some of the things that they do. You know, he kind of is taken aback actually with how some things kind of play out in it as well. So to me, the film's such an easy watch. I think that's the bit that I was taken aback with. It sort of flows over you for the 4 hours that I watched it without really much really grabbing you or being kind of too immediate. And then you get to the end and it feels like it has to make a point to wrap it up. And I sort of felt like as soon as Mary O'Donnell's character and Kevin Costner kind of get married, the film's sort of over at that stage, because you know what happens next, and it's not pretty and it's not good. But the film at its heart is about overcoming difference, I feel, for most of the runtime at that stage with them milling away, and the ending sort of jars against that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the two cultures collide, and there's barbaric things that the tribe does, but there's also barbaric things that the other side does too, like murdering all the animals for their hides and not for their
buffalo.
meat. Kind of more of a, the things that so both sides see things that are done normally as barbaric. And I like that when different cultures meet, they see things in a certain way. They have this different reaction to things that we consider normal, but someone else would consider barbaric, just because for us it's every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is a there is a sense of harmony versus chaos going on throughout the film, and I think it's kind of portrayed in this sense of madness that overcomes individuals, but also how that spreads out to the group, the tribe, the culture that's that individual is a part of. And like, because right off the bat, I don't mean madness as somebody just being loopy or crazy. I mean like a general madness, not like a one flew over the cuckoo nest madness, but a societal madness almost. And this madness at first is displayed as inspiring when he's in the battle and he just crazily goes out on his horse and changes the whole course of that battle that he's originally in, that he was wounded with his leg and stuff. And but then he encounters even more madness with his new posting. He's basically brought there by this really crazy merchant, and which brought on a lot of humor and stuff like that. But then there's the sheer madness of these Indians coming down and killing the merchant for all his goods and stuff like that. And and like you mentioned, the slaughtered buffalo, that seems crazy on some level, and all this stuff is just displaying this kind of madness that overtakes a society when they encounter the other, and when they come across things that they don't understand. And I think Costner's character, even though he displayed his own sense of madness in that battle, because the battle itself was mad, just the way it was occurring and wasn't resolving, and And I think the character growth of him going into this new territory, which is mad in and of itself, taking over that fort. Any other person would have just headed back and said, "Hey, there's nothing here," But he had this mad sense of duty to perform, and it was kind of an exploratory madness. He wanted to know what was next. He wanted to know what was going to happen next, and he didn't have much to go back to in the first place. So all that just keeps culminating into further and further to allow this sense of discovery that he eventually, this quest that he goes on to learn about where he is and learn about this new sense of harmony versus the chaos he's been involved with so far. And I thought that was pretty well portrayed in the film, that sort of character growth there.
Yeah. I think the scenario at the start is sort of overlooked in terms of like a thematic setting up for the thing, because obviously the film starts with him basically considering, right, I'm going to lose my leg, and he basically he'd rather die in battle rather than them amputate his leg and go ahead. That's really what he's doing at that stage, is basically killing himself at that stage, because his leg's no good. Whereas when he becomes the hero, they save his leg. It becomes important enough to save. So it was not that they couldn't. He wasn't important enough. And you contrast that with, I think, the Sioux people and how they treat the buffalo. They try and use every part of the buffalo in some way in their society and what they're doing. Nothing's left to waste, and there's a natural harmony there. But this kind of idea that we cast off the things that are weighing us down in one type of society, and we embrace and use everything in a more natural society. And I think that kind of set the thematic tone for the film, I think, and why, given his background and his experience at the start, why that would have been, a good thing for him, or he would have sought it out, if you know what I mean, as a lifestyle in a way, because he was sort of discarded, and it was just through luck that he was then integrated in, but it wasn't actually planned for him. He was seen as unnecessary.
Yeah, but I think that contrasts the two different cultures, and one has an abundance of food and resource, not an abundance, but they have more than they need, and the other side needs every last bit for survival. But I think they drew that contrast pretty well, but I think at the end it really hammers it home with a jackhammer that, this side bad. Like the wolf dying, the horse being shot, all of it got very dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were trying to prove a point at the end.
Yeah. There's also the contrast, I think, with, I think there's a little bit of what Platoon was kind of talking about when they talked about, they showed the kind of low levels of literacy and things within this Spivey, the character at the end, when he stole the journal and was basically ended up using it for toilet paper at that stage. And about the fact that the people perpetrating an awful lot of this, they weren't interested in educating themselves in some way, whereas in their own way, and again, this is a choice through the film, they showed the education and the growth of the young Sioux warrior, and the fact that he ends up killing, using a tomahawk at the end, after being kind of chased down by the buffalo at some part of the film, and Costner having to save his life at that stage, and they see the growth of that thing and how people are brought along, and everybody's seen as important to have the same skill set sort of going forward to help the tribe, whereas kind of, again, this thing that maybe all we need is a body, so they sort of need fodder, which is just, I think, a general case of war. I think war perpetuates that in some ways, is that there has to be some loss of life, etc., needed to win wars or to take part in wars, and it's just, it just ends up coming through as just very sad and unnecessary, I think, when it comes through. If you were to contrast this with a similar film, I kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, Jared, kind of seen, have either of you seen Soldier Blue? So Soldier Blue does something similar in terms of integrating, in terms somebody from outside the tribe into the tribe, and it ends. I mean, the ending scene is telling the real life battle, which was a massacre, and the ending of that film is being cut heavily and released in the UK. You can't. There's 8 minutes of that film missing because it's so brutal, and even the cut version is pretty extreme. So, and it's not as long, but it's not as poetic, and it's not as beautiful, I don't think, as a film as this, but it treads similar ground, and it's from, I think, about 77. I think that was made somewhere around that. So it's not that this film was doing anything original, and I don't think this film was really doing anything kind of outlandish in its portrayal. But for me, the difference between these two films is absolutely about the kind of sereneness and the peace that kind of comes over that middle 50-60% of the film, you know, as this kind of embracing of language and kind of trying to learn about each other. And like I say, the general feeling of just trying to get along. I just find it a very soothing movie.
That's interesting. I found it amusing that during that period that you're talking about in the middle of the film there, when he's in the fort, you know, in quotes there. Yeah. It's not really much of a fort, but he's constantly being woken up or surprised, like all the time. I'm like, everything waits to happen until he's asleep. and then you know, something happens, and it's like it's almost like civilization's asleep until something pokes it, you know. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I like it's just it's the end. Yeah, when they shot the wolf, I was just like, oh, jeez, that one hurt. I was just like, ah, man.
Good old Two Socks did nothing wrong. It was the most innocent of everybody, you know. It was just, you know, and certainly in the version I've seen. But the end of the film, there's the wolf, another wolf howling, as they're making their escape and they're trying to creep away. And again, there's this sort of eternalness and cycle of life and of nature that, like, you can kill something, but you're not actually changing anything. You've just literally butchered an innocent animal for no reason, just for sport and for fun.
You know, I was curious about that at the end when they leave because they're afraid to bring trouble to the tribe as they're traveling. Would it make a difference? Won't they still have? I mean, they're still going to find themselves in a fight, whether he's with them or not. They're not going to be friendly with if the owner catches up to them, right? I mean, they might be a little bit worse, but they're not going to just meet them and have a nice lunch and some coffee and call it a day. They're going to, you know, they pretty much displayed what they'll do when they find, either way, if they find them.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's it lends his characters, the characters themselves at that point have this weird false sense of hope that, you know, that this was the right path. The chief even tells him you can't see everything coming. That's one of his lines.
Yeah.
And so it's I guess that's because then, you know, that we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to occur to these tribes, and but the characters themselves, I guess, have this false sense of hope. Even the sense of hope that led him to going back to try to find that journal. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm like, don't do that. It's pointless, you know. But the character himself still had this sense of hope that if he guarded that, he would be able to save somebody or save some people, you know. And we all know as the viewers that that's not going to happen. That it's not going to matter whether he gets that journal back or not. It has no bearing on what the history is going to happen here. But there was this character is instilled with this false sense of hope through the interaction and harmony he learned by living with these people. And I think that's kind of the point there.
Yeah, there's a feeling like that the Sioux don't realize how how hunted they are naturally. It's almost like they believe that he is the instigator, but as we know, as soon as they came across any of those tribes, they wiped them out. You know, it wasn't a case of they wiped them out because they were harbouring John Dunbar.
Right.
So they were getting, but there's kind of a naiveness, I think, in some ways, which I think is portrayed actually through the film and a lot, you know, because they're still trying to see their way of life and kind of build their way of life and sticking to traditions and that kind of stuff. They think they're going to be able to continue to do this forever, whereas history tells us that we know what's going to happen. But like you said, so like I say, you're left with a melancholy tint of sad to say this kind of way of life is coming to an end as the frontiers getting expanded upon. And also in contrast to the fact that when he requested his new posting to the frontier because he wanted to see more of it, he was already, like I say, in that mindset of, I want to kind of see what life has to offer in terms of outside of being the military and being part of the machine, etc. I want to expand my horizons. So like he was in that mindset of wanting to embrace a simpler life, that kind of stuff already. So.
Throughout the movie, I was wondering, because I think this movie could be viewed a lot differently today. Would this movie be made today without it having some kind of controversy?
I mean, nobody ever would have greenlit this movie. In fact, this movie had enough problems getting made in its own time in 1990. There was quite a lot that happened that kind of bounced forward of trying to get funding and that kind of stuff. And I don't know if you knew this or this was common knowledge, but they were having such trouble that they decided they asked the screenwriter to write the book and publish the book and hope that the book was successful to aid the movie to get, and that is what happened. Is that the book became a best-selling book, and then but it was originally set out as a screenplay for this, and they thought actually to help it get made, that they would publish the book, then it'd get notoriety, and then they would get, and that is actually what happened because they were struggling to get funding for this film at the time. So it was the original budget of 15 million is what they were given, and it went up to 22. Wow. So it barely got made in its own time, but I think now that just the idea of historical epics, like how many of them get made now? Of anything?
I have no idea.
Very rare. And when they do, they don't do very well.
Well, you look at Costner's last film, which was the American Western. It never got finished. You know, Horizons, yes, that's the American Journey. So he tried to do something similar, and again, even with the funding of the streamers and that kind of stuff, it never ended up getting made. So I think even these tales for archive's sake, really, rather than even making points, just doesn't happen anymore. There has to be big star, there has to be big fight, something, a big event. They make films about events that happen in history, not about ways of life, which is sad.
I do think historical epics being longer, I think it hurts them now because people,
it does.
Unless it's a blockbuster action, fast-paced kind of film, I don't think people are willing to sit down for 3 or 4 hours anymore and watch a historical epic like this.
Yeah,
as many people, at least.
It's kind of ironic because at the beginning of our discussion, we complain about how long it is, but then now we're like, oh, they don't make them anymore.
I know.
It's kind of funny.
It is funny, yeah.
I mean,
this movie could have been shorter.
Yeah. Oh, well, definitely could have been. I mean, they could have cut it the last hour. Like Killers of the Flower Moon is the last one I can think of that kind of fits that. And again, it was about 3 hours long. And I loved Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought it was absolutely terrific, but it had a point to make. You know, it was actually quite a political film in a lot of ways. You know, it was not just this kind of representation of what this is what life was like at the change of the frontier between you know civilization and the native people kind of exerting control on their own land, etc. You know, it was different, but it wasn't very successful either, and it was only really made with the aid of streaming money, you know, through Apple at the time. So, and the fact that it was Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, interesting. What did you think? one thing I noticed that the film kind of presented to us, but didn't really delve that deeply into, was the introduction of guns to the Indians, to the Sioux people, and how they readily grasped and held on to this concept and this new type of ammunition for them. And I was just wondering what you make of that, because it's a it's an interesting topic to think about, the introduction of technology to people who have not had that technology before.
Yeah, I think it was, well, obviously it was a game changer for them. And it leveled the playing field in some ways. But I do think the idea that they can all pick up guns with never handling them or having any experience with them, and then being kind of these sharpshooters is a little bit, it was a little bit okay, sure, buddy. But the idea behind it is, I think, more important than the actual, them being master marksmen in a few days. But yeah, I think that was the introduction of gunpowder and the evolution of war and combat finally caught up to them, and they obviously give them a big advantage.
Yeah. I think throughout history, especially at that time, I think the fact is they were much more of a blunt instrument, just by their overwhelming power, and they changed the nature of warfare, but just by the fact people have them. So this idea is sharpshooters, I mean, probably not, but just if everybody's firing guns, there's a power exuded by that. It also reminds me of the scene at the end of The Last Samurai. If you think about that as well, it does a similar thing at the end of that as well. The raw power of that, and munitions at that stage. And it doesn't really spend an awful lot of time on that aspect of it. There's just a brief reluctance from the Sioux when he says, "Oh, I've got more guns. Let's go get them." And they're like, "Oh, right, well, you can take somebody with you." But even the use of the Pawnee tribe as being the kind of allies of the American soldier and the troops there, and that this sort of like, they thought they were protecting their own survival by allying with the unstoppable force that was moving west at the same stage, and that falling apart. They didn't really investigate that an awful lot, although again, that's something we know from history, kind of, that happened, etc., to help those kind of forces rule them out, etc. So for even such a long film, there were lots of aspects that were only lightly touched on, in terms of what they could talk about.
Yeah, I think there was similar themes in like Last of Mohicans as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going on, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few movies around this time period in the 90s, I think, that explore this time period.
Yeah.
Some of the same actors too.
That's true. Yeah.
Sure.
Talking of which, right? So I was seeing a lot of reviews when I was kind of finished watching it again, a lot of people kind of talking about that Costner's not a good actor, and I would sort of agree with that in some ways, but he's also perfect for what this film was. I mean, he's the sort of everyman. There's nothing really special about him. He's just a guy with really not a lot to him. He's not really funny. He's not really brave. He's not any of those things. I mean, the whole scene at the start is about him committing suicide and taking the easy way out rather than get his leg amputated. And I think Mary O'Donnell won the Oscar for this, I believe. No, she didn't. She was... Yeah, she was nominated, was she? But anyway...
I thought she was awful.
I didn't think she was good. Yeah, Mary McDonnell was. Yeah, she was nominated. I did not think she was good at all in this. In fact, I found that performance and her pretending that she couldn't remember the words of her language, and then being remembering a really long word in the middle of it, and I was like, oh my god, this is dreadful. I found that very, very tough, actually, in that part.
I wonder. Okay, so. I have a problem with this character because the whole background was that as a child, her family was murdered and she was able to escape, and then she was picked up by the tribe and she became part of them. So it does open up the idea of they are welcoming to other people to join and integrate into their culture. And But I felt like if Costner would have just found someone in the tribe already and fall in love with them, I think that would have been much more effective than
Absolutely.
it being another white person that he met. And really, he couldn't relate to her much because she grew up with the tribe. So she was more Sioux than she was anything else,
Yeah.
like, so I just felt like that was unnecessary. I think it would have brought it all together more if she had been someone from the tribe that he fell in love with. And then he escaped. They decided together to leave because she would also be leaving the tribe and have more of a connection to them, not so much as being taken in by them, but being there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been much more powerful of a connection if he fell in love with someone there instead of someone that I don't know. I felt like it would have been more impactful.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think she was terrible in the film. I don't think she was good at all. So
Yeah.
I wonder if,
appreciate
I wonder if they were trying to avoid the John Smith Pocahontas situation.
Maybe.
I wonder. I don't know. I was wondering about that decision as well because I think that ties into your question about whether this film would be made today and would they make those same choices, or would they do what you just described as a more integrated thing? But
it was like lowest common denominator. I sort of do have a memory when I seen this in the cinema at the time of like, at least there was somebody for him, kind of thing. But that in itself, as you say, takes away from the whole underlying theme of the film, which is that, understanding and being patient and making an effort to integrate yourself in just can be done. Like the differences even of language and all those things in culture don't have to be these barriers that they pretend to be.
Yeah, and there was even problems with the script because even the Sioux shaman and the chief were saying the same thing that we're describing now. And I was just like, really? Would they really think like that?
Yeah.
And I know that they had so she was married to another tribesman before who was killed.
Yes. Yep.
She finds out about his death. She tries to commit suicide. That's when Costner finds her, and that's how they meet, and that gives him a chance to save her, to introduce himself to the tribe, and to start to show that he's a caring person. He's not out to get them. He doesn't mean any harm. But also, she sure does get over it pretty quick. I mean, from her being really upset to and them kind of debating, do you think she's ready yet?
Ready, yeah.
So I don't know. I just felt like that. I don't know. That whole thing I just felt like was unnecessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell you who was great. Graham Greene is a kicking bird as the holy man. He's terrific in this. He actually he steals every scene, I think, that he's in, and the general humor and things that he portrays and that he brings. He was nominated. I was just having a look, support and get beat up by Joe Pesci, which I think is actually fair enough. As it goes, but yeah, we'll allow it. Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah,
he's brilliant.
I think he has lots of charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was. So, I think Costner gets overshadowed a lot by these. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but a lot of other characters have much more charisma and kind of this gumption. But I think that was intended. I think he was supposed to be kind of the everyman and not someone special, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was pretty early in Costner's career, right? If I'm remembering. And I don't remember anything else before this.
So he did Fandango, I think, was before. Something that jumps out to me. If you've ever seen
I don't
that,
remember anything else before this. But if you look at all of his roles post this, he kind of is the everyman in all his movies. So it didn't change that much as time went on.
I don't know if you guys remember, he was huge in the 90s. He was a heartthrob. And he's not really a classically attractive person. He's not someone that you see and say, "Wow, like
Yeah, I would
he's a
agree with
looker." Like he's kind of plain. So it's. I think it was a strange time for someone. He has a look, but he's not someone who you would look at and not who he is and think, "Oh, he must be." There's something special about this guy. It's just like he's like Joe next door. So
yeah. I'm gonna shame you, Jared. You've made me look it up.
Oh,
So
but
before Dances with Wolves, there was Field of Dreams.
that was before.
That's right.
Okay, I didn't
Bull
know that.
Durham was before it. The Untouchables was before it. The Way Out was before it.
Oh, okay, all right.
A couple of small
But-
movies, small budget movies.
Well, movies.
Yeah,
The Big Chill was
Field of
before,
Dreams.
yeah.
No one's ever heard of that.
Yeah. But they aren't. They're all within about 3 years of each other, Jared. So you're not.
Yeah,
They're,
pretty
they're
close,
not. They're all around the same time. And given how old some of us are, and I say some of us, we're all kind of roughly the same age. Memory is a funny thing.
Yeah. Well, they all came out the same year, if you ask me. But anyways.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. There are more. I remember it being a very serious movie, but it had some lighthearted moments in it. I was not as serious as I remember it being until the end, until the last act.
Yeah, and I think those moments, those humorous moments, help us get through the film and help us relate a little bit more to the characters in a lot of ways, and make it so that this epic is ultimately watchable. Because if it was all doom and gloom, it would be a 4-hour grind. I don't think anybody would want to participate in, and so the humor really helps contrast the dark, serious nature of what the ending became. Yeah,
Because outside of the start and the end, there's really not a lot happens in this. I mean, there is a bit of a buffalo hunt, but even in that, it's not this kind of, oh my God, somebody's going to die kind of buffalo hunt or anything. It's just kind of showing a way of life. There's not really an awful lot happening. And I have to say, I was really surprised by just how easy it was to watch and just kind of go along with. I wasn't bored at stages. It just kind of like, oh, this is quite nice. And it's beautiful to look at, obviously. Any of those films in the Western genre that kind of use the setting to its advantage will always be entirely watchable. And it's probably to its strength that not an awful lot happens. So you don't really get these dips and peaks and dips and peaks and dips through it. That it just sort of is as it was. But I do remember when I went to see this in the cinema with some friends in 1990 or whatever it was, a lot of them came out and went, oh, it was so boring. Nothing happened. And I wouldn't have been very old, so I'd have been 13 or so. So a 13-year-old going to watch this at the time probably did think that. I do remember liking it and going, actually, something really resonant about that, and kind of being carried along. Like you become one of the tribe yourself in accepting, his story, which is obviously, films being empathy machines is sort of what they do.
Yeah, it was a lot could have been trimmed down, but
yeah.
But I think I was pretty young watching this too. I remember it being pretty good. So
yeah,
yeah. It's. I mean, like I was telling Chris earlier, I think this makes my top 20. It's a pretty good film. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it again. Like I did watch it back in the 90s, and I remember liking it back then. But now that I've seen it again, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see why I liked it.
Yeah,
and I can see the things that did stuck with me for a reason. Because there were those good character moments that made the film, there was a certain special something to those moments. His interaction with the wolf,
Mhm.
and his introduction into the tribe, like you said, with the shaman and stuff like that, and that growth between those two characters, and that that overcoming obstacle to understanding between them was really, really, really powerful stuff, I think, at the time. And those are the things that stuck with me over the years that I was looking forward to seeing again upon this watching.
Yeah, it's very much middle of the pack for me. 15. It is, either side of it is ordinary people, just below it, One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest above it.
Yeah, I have 14, so yeah, it's it's
yeah, middle of the road is about right.
Yeah, middle of the road of all of the 31 movies you watch is still a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
There's some really I know we dump on Oliver a lot, but there's some Oliver lovers out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. Lots of people love Oliver.
Lots of people love Oliver. Lots of people love The Deer Hunter. There's my bottom two.
Well, I love the Disney version.
Oliver and Company, yeah.
Oliver, yeah. Oliver and Company. Yeah.
Yeah, about the middle of the road for me too. But
yeah,
overall, I think it was I don't regret having to watch it. It wasn't it wasn't a painful watch. It was long, but it
just long.
Either.
Yeah. It was not. But what is Patton? Eh? Oh boy,
that's a rough one. So 1990 is wrapped up. So we'll go into 1991 with just lost it. Jodie Foster
Silence.
and Silence of the Lambs. Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. The 90s was a strange time.
Yeah. I mean, no more so. Like when we come to the next discussion, the 5 nominees actually sum up how wild the 90s were for that year, about how kind of weird and diverse and what a weird space it was in terms of like what movies they were making at the time and what was popular. Like Costner's a lot over all this. Like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was the next year and wasn't nominated. What an absolute scandal.
That was a good movie. I remember that being good.
It was a fun movie. Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah. It was, I wouldn't say it was good, but it was an entertaining movie. Yeah.
But
so 1991. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say that lots of diversity in that. In that year.
Well, hopefully I get it. This is a hot take, but when I went and saw Silence of the Lambs in the theater back then, I fell asleep. So
wow.
I'm hoping I have a different reaction this time.
Wow.
You have a long night the night before? Or
I don't remember that, but that was a long time ago. But
yeah, beat out Beauty and the Beast, which I think would have been in the running. Bugsy, JFK, which I love. I love JFK.
Yeah, I think JFK's
great.
Prince Tides. I love Beauty and the Beast.
So
Beauty and the Beast is excellent. It really is.
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
So we have a thriller, we have a cartoon or animated, we have crime, we have political thriller, and then we have romance that year, all in the winners and nominations. So
Bugsy's such a weird film on that list. Like, it really is. Jesus, what is Bugsy? Anybody talk about Bugsy now? Like, I don't know.
That's Warren Beatty and
yes, it is.
Annette
Bening.
Annette
Bening. I was going to say Gina Davis, but it's Bening. Fisher King was that year as well.
Oh, I love Fisher King. Yeah,
Fisher King's great. Commitments was that year, like I said. Terminator 2 Judgment Day was that year. Thelma and Louise was that year. So, like, the fact those 5 films that they picked, I think are really odd in terms of, like, what they had to pick from.
Lots of looking over the list. Lots of questionable choices for best picture winners that year. Lots of movies that did not win. Like A Few Good Men didn't win. Let's see what else. Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Apollo 13, Fargo, Jerry Maguire.
That year, when we get to it.
Good Will Hunting, LA Confidential didn't win.
Wow.
Life is Beautiful, Saving Private Ryan, The Thin Red Line, The Green Mile didn't win. There's lots of
things to discuss in those years, which is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So 1990 is a wrap. Going to 1981 with Silence of the Lambs. That'll be a feel good watch. So hopefully Jared doesn't fall asleep. But until next time, where can people find you, Jared?
When I'm not sleeping, you can find me at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and you can find me on Panel Showing, talking about weekly picks, and you can find me on Speculative Speculation podcast.
And Chris?
Yeah, you can find me on Speculative Speculations as well. You can find me on page 2, and you can find me on my own YouTube channel if I ever make another video. Yeah. Which is just my name, Chris Moore.
Yeah. It's rough out there. Yeah, find me on pagetune.com. Come and say hello and see all the stuff that we're up to all the time. So next time, maybe we'll talk to everyone very soon.